Welcome back to Grumpy Vet Garage. Today we're back on my 2004 E55 AMG doing more maintenance. We took care of the immediate issues, the aromatic leak we had, and then also valve cover leaks that we had, but now we need to move on to actually doing an oil change on the car for the first time since we've owned it. Oil, of course, is the lifeblood of any car, and we're not only going to change the oil, but we're also going to capture a sample of the oil so that we can send it off to Blackstone Labs to get an idea of what is the condition of our M113K engine. But first step with any oil change is we need to get the engine up to operating temperature. Warming up the oil and circulating through the engine allows any contaminants that may be in the oil to be captured within the oil and not settled to the bottom of the oil pan. This is good because when we turn around and drain our warm oil, anything contaminant-wise should flow out with the oil change. So let's go ahead and warm up this engine. Okay, now that we got the engine up to operating temperature, we now need to lift the car so that we can access both drain plugs on the bottom side of the car. You're going to want to use a jack, of course, to lift the vehicle, but you're also going to want to use jack stands for safety purposes because we are going to be getting underneath the vehicle. Okay, so I got the vehicle jacked up. I went ahead and left the jack in place on the front jack pad and then placed two jack stands on the front two jack pads for the door sills. I always think it's good to leave the jack in place. It's not really in the way for this job. It's just better to have it there for safety. Now coming underneath the vehicle, there's going to be two trays to remove. I already removed them because I was leak checking or finding leaks on the engine, and there was definitely one on top. My valve covers were leaking. But there's a panel here and a panel over the transmission. They both need to come off, and they're held in with these 8mm screws. So forget how many there are. I'll put them on the screen, the number of screws there are, but they need to be removed to get access to the bottom of the engine. Okay, so now starting up top, with these cartridge style oil filters, I like to go ahead and remove them first because oil is going to drain when you pull the filter back into the crankcase. So I think it's always best to start with removing the oil filter. The oil filter requires a special wrench. I'll have a link to this and pretty much everything I'm using in this in the video description, but also you could possibly use a strap wrench to remove this. It's not torqued on super tight, but this is the appropriate wrench to remove that oil filter cap. Should be on super tight. If it is, there's a problem, but it should come free relatively easy. It's good to have a paper towel or two ready. This unit's kind of long, so be prepared for that. All right, and then remove the entire unit and put it to the side so we can drain a little bit. Now with the oil filter removed, it's best to check inside the housing there just to make sure that you don't see anything out of the ordinary. And this all looks very normal to me, so no real worries here. Okay, now coming down to my ancient but still functional drain pan, we need to go ahead and pull the filter off of the housing. So probably grabbing a towel might be better just to kind of minimize the mess, but this whole piece will slide off. Now the filter isn't directional, so it's the same on both sides, but what I like to do is go ahead and cut off this outside sheeting and try to get down to the filter media. That way we can see if there's anything glaringly wrong with the engine that would have been caught by this filter. Okay, so as you can see, nothing fancy, just using a blade, cutting the ends off of the filter, exposing the media. You don't need to go super wide. This is good enough, but you're wanting to look through the media and look for, basically you're looking for metal. That's really the only thing that you can see glaringly. Like that's something right there. You're looking for material. Now, is that metal? I don't know. It could be this fiber material holding it together. But seeing one chunk like that makes me think it's probably this filter material is what I'm seeing. And then on the other side, you're just looking for what looks like a glitter party. Something there. Nope, nothing there. Okay. This looks good to me. Now, granted, I am going to be doing an oil sample as well and sending off to Blackstone Labs. But if you weren't doing that, or even if you were doing that, looking at your oil filter to kind of see if there's anything that it's been catching that's clearly visible can give you an indication of whether you have a problem or not, whether or not you want to just throw oil back in it and go for it. Okay, so back underneath the car, and as I mentioned earlier, 2 drain plugs. So the front one is right here, and the rear one is right there, where my finger's pointing right there. So both of the plugs are 13 millimeter. I like to start with the front sump first and then do the back sump. Make sure to have some towels available. The placement of the sway bar in the front is a little problematic for draining, but we'll make it work. So I got the front draining. Make sure that you get the crush washer. If it sticks to the side of the pan, you want to make sure to pull it off like a pick tool or something. But yeah, you're definitely going to want to change the sealing washer on the drain plug. So we'll go ahead and let that drain for a little while, and then we will move forward. So the position with the sway bar coming across, I ended up using a 13 millimeter crow's foot to get access around the sway bar. You could just remove it with a combination wrench, but it's going to make it difficult for you to actually torque it back on, which makes the crow's foot a really good handy thing to have. The crush washer on the drain plug is actually a 14 millimeter copper crush washer. You're going to want to change that when you put on the plug. So plug is torqued on. It's going to be 30 Newton meters or 22 foot-pounds. But again, this area is just very tight because of where the sway bar is. But it's doable, just it's a bit of a pain. Okay, now before moving to the back, we're going to go ahead and just get a standard socket of 13 millimeter for that rear plug. But also we're going to get our sample container that's provided by Blackstone Labs so that we can capture the oil coming out of the drain. The key thing is you want to make sure no dirt gets inside of this container. So when we remove the lid, don't touch the lid. And then once we break free the plug and oil starts coming out, we want to let it come out for a second or two and then get a sample from that rear sump. Well, I hope you can see, I got some cleaning that I need to do back here, but this is going to be the drain plug. Okay, the rear is still draining. I was able to get the sample. It's cleaned up now. But it was like the apocalypse down here. I missed the pan. Oil started running on my arm. It was everywhere. I'm glad I did not have the camera somehow. Granted, I can't really set the camera up underneath the car like this because it's too tall for me to put on a tripod and all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad I wasn't actually filming. But just imagine the worst case scenario, and that's what happened. It was everywhere. I have a sealed garage floor. Highly recommend cardboard if you're on a regular concrete floor. It'll save you from staining up your concrete floor. But yeah, it was horrible. So now we need to just go ahead and let that finish draining. And then the same thing, it's going to be new crush washer on the plug and then torque to 30 Newton meters or 22 foot-pounds. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and reassemble the oil filter cap. I'm using a man filter. Here's a part number. I'll have a link to everything in the video description. But you need to go ahead and remove the seals. So there's going to be a top seal, this seal, and then 2 on the end, so they're progressively larger. This kit also comes with an extra seal that's I guess the middle one. It's the largest of the small ones. It's not going to be used with the M113K. This filter kit works on multiple engines, and another engine, I'm not sure which one, actually uses that other filter. So don't be surprised when you have 5 O-rings, you're only going to use the 4. So using a pick tool like this, or just your hands, you're just going to turn around and remove the O-rings. These smaller ones, probably the pick tool would be a better way to do it. All right, so that's all of the O-rings off. So pull those aside. We're also not going to use this pick tool anymore. We don't want to put any sharp objects with our new seal. Now this is just standard motor oil. I'm going to be using 5W40 liquid moly, but we're just putting a little bit of lubrication on the O-rings. I like to keep a little oil can just for that kind of purpose. Just make sure it's actually in the groove, and then do the other three. Okay, that's all new O-rings on the cap. Okay, now on the filter, it's non-directional. It's the same on both sides, so just pick a side. And it is a very tight fit going onto the cap, so don't be surprised by that. And you see the two lines? They want you to push it on until this one is flush. Like that. So there's two lines on the side. Just make sure that they're not both sticking up here, that one is flush with the cap. But this right here, also you can see the end is come free there too. But this is their indicator they've used. Now this assembly is ready to go back in to the oil filter housing. Okay, so quickly just make sure that there's no debris or anything wrong in the oil filter housing. Then taking the assembly and carefully place it in. Always rotate the wrong direction to kind of get the threads to engage. It'll kind of drop in, and then you can start screwing it down by hand. Okay, so coming in with our wrench, go ahead and seat it down. It's going to get torqued down to, it says right on the cap, 25 Newton meters, which goes to 18 foot-pounds. And you're just making sure that the O-ring is properly seated. And that's it. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and fill the engine with motor oil. I'm using Liquid Moly's 5W40. And the capacity for the engine is 8.5 liters. Okay, so I went ahead and put 500 milliliters, something on the side, which is half a liter, and we'll pour that on in. I have a link to this measuring cup in the video description as well. You probably don't want to use your wife's Pyrex measuring cup. I have this one just for motor oil because it seems like everything nowadays is half a quart or half a liter, so it's good to have. Okay, go ahead and reinstall the oil cap. And now we need to go back underneath the vehicle and check the drain plugs and make sure we don't have any leaks. Okay, so no leaks, which is good. But now's a good opportunity. If you have a lot of oil on the bottom of your engine or in some general areas, go ahead and wipe it down. It'll make it easier for you later if you do develop some sort of oil leak that you can hopefully be able to determine where it's coming from. But now you can go ahead and put back on the under trays. Again, it's 8mm screws that are holding it on. There's really no torque on those screws. Just run them down snug. Okay, so the car's back on the ground. And here is my oil sample that I'm going to send off to Blackstone Labs. I'm going to make a separate video about oil analysis because it doesn't just apply to engine oil. It also applies to differential oil, transmission oil. So once I put that video out, I'll put a card on the screen that will link to that video so that you could see about oil analysis. So now moving into the car, we want to go ahead and reset our oil change. So we're going to take our key and we're going to put it into the ignition and we're going to go to the first position. Then we're going to come over to the reset button. We're going to hit it 3 times. And it brings up battery voltage, which is also very convenient. But now we're going to go ahead and do the down button. And it's pulling up the service menu. Okay, then it'll come up to this menu. We're going to then use the minus. Go to confirmation. We're going to hit the, hit this button here. Then next it's going to say full service. And that's what we did. We did full service. So go ahead and hit this button again. Service confirmed. We can exit back out of the menu. And we're done. Okay, now to check oil level, you need to warm the car up. There's actually two ways to do this. One's electronically, and the other one is with a dipstick, one that you would have to buy. The vehicle doesn't actually come with one. To do it electronically, again, warmed up engine, and then when you come back from a drive, or at least warming it up, you need to let it set for 5 minutes. Then you'll take your key, put it in the ignition, go to the first position, then hit the reset button over here 3 times. Then coming over here, you're going to go up. And then you'll see right here where it actually shows oil level and it's nothing there. Now you need to go to the next position on the key, so one more position over. I need to put in some washer fluid, big shocker. So now it shows the number of quarts, 8.4. Okay, now for the dipstick method. The car does not come with a dipstick. I already mentioned that. But this is the dipstick tube right here. It's just a cap that pulls out. You can set this aside for this method. Now, there are multiple dipsticks that you can buy. This is one that I got from ECS Tuning. It's for checking transmission fluid level, but it also works very well for this purpose. You're also going to need a ruler that measures in millimeters, and I have this this ruler that I got from my kids like a decade ago, and it works really good. But now using the dipstick, you're going to feed it into the dipstick tube. Now you're not going to want to force it down. You're going to want to ease it down until you fill the bottom of the oil pan. It's right there. Now when you go to pull it back out, you're going to be looking for where the mark is on the dipstick in relation to the bottom of the pan. So you'll turn around and grab it right where it's the oil level's at. Granted, we just changed the oil, so it's going to be difficult to see on this one. But then you're just going to need to match it up to the actual ruler. And in my case, it's at 16.5 centimeters or 165 millimeters. Okay, so now that we have that reading, what do we do with it? I'm going to put on the screen here a chart that I pulled down from AllData that shows the oil level check for Mercedes, specifically for the M113K engine. This isn't going to work for the M13 or M113 or any other engines. It's very specific to the M113K. And as you can see on the screen, 165 millimeters on the dipstick means I need to add 0.2 liters of oil to get what they consider to be the correct oil level. I will say right now that I don't believe that this list is to scale. It says, you know, to get that additional 2 millimeters to get 0.2 liter. I was lower than this when I started. So once I put in 8.5 liters of oil, I was still sitting at 150 millimeters on the dipstick. But when you come over here and you see that it says to add a liter, I decided to creep up on that, and I ended up putting a half a liter in, and that half a liter got me to where I am right now. So really I'm sitting where it should have been more like 0.7 liters or 0.8 liters added. But again, I would use this chart as a guide and make small adjustments to it to get to the correct oil level. So the oil change process on the M113K is not as straightforward as your typical oil change. First off, the quantity of oil being changed is definitely more than 8.5 liters The drain pan I was using was large enough to contain the amount of oil being drained from the E55, but it was close. It was filled to the brim. So I'm making an upgrade. I'm getting a larger pan. I would suggest that you have a pan that's at least able to hold 10 quarts. My Silverado that's outside, oil changes on that are actually 3 gallons. So I had been using a bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket, as an oil bucket to drain into. But I'm going to go ahead and upgrade so that I can handle that amount of oil, but also handle the 10-ish quarts of oil that's going to be drained from the E55. Secondly, the listed capacity of 8.5 liters, I think really should be more characterized as a starting oil level. You need to use the 2 oil check methods to check the oil level on the E55, so the dipstick and the electronic method, just to make sure that you're actually filling the engine properly. In all, I used 9 liters of oil on this oil change, so 9.5 quarts. I think there's numerous factors that make this oil fill process a little more problematic. Different chassis, different oil cooler setups depending on the year. So it's not going to be a simple filter removal and change and then drain and fill. It's going to be oil filter change, drain and fill, and then check to see what additional oil you need to add. I think over time, doing numerous oil changes on your vehicle, you're going to get a ballpark number that you're going to work with. Like next time I do an oil change, I'm not going to go 8.5 liters. I'm just going to go to 9. So ultimately, my suggestion is to aim for that 160 to 168 millimeter window on the dipstick method, just to make sure you don't overfill. So if you get into the 160s, anything, just stop there. That would be good. And then additionally, talking about oil change intervals or letting the car's onboard system determine when you should change your oil. I don't believe in any of that. I don't really believe in extended oil changes. These cars are getting older. They need maintenance. And I think a solid 3,000 mile interval is what you need to do on this vehicle. Quite honestly, any vehicle. I do a 3,000 mile oil change interval on my Supra, and it's a 2021. So I don't think there's any benefit to be gained other than monetarily short term by extending out oil changes. I don't believe in it. I don't think you should do that. And that's my opinion. But if you have any questions about the oil change process, or you want to leave a comment about your experience with oil changes on your M113K powered Mercedes, leave a comment. But if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to Grumpy Vet Garage, liking this video, sharing this video. To support the channel, we have a Grumpy Vet Garage merch store. Link to that store is in the video description. Additionally, we have affiliate marketing links in the video description. Using those links to make any purchase directly supports the channel. If you want to contact me, you can do so through the comment section of this video or through our Facebook or Instagram page. Link is in the video description. But as always, thanks for coming and seeing me in my garage. And until next time, have a good one.